Tonight at 10, the battle along the border ongoing. Now it's got the Attorney General and Texas Governor Greg Abbott fighting against one another. Plus, the ball is in OU and UT's court. Tonight we have the latest in the Big 12 and SEC drama. And it was no secret who was going number one, but the question is, who went next? We have a breakdown of tonight's NBA draft.
Connecting the Brazos Valley, this is KRHD News.
Hi there, everyone, and thanks for being with us on this Thursday at 10. I'm Todd Unger. It's official, the SEC voting in favor of University of Texas and Oklahoma joining the league. KRHD News reporter Rachel Espaillat explains what that could mean for TV contracts in the local economy.
In this single tweet, the SEC announced presidents and chancellors voted unanimously Thursday to extend membership invitations to the University of Oklahoma and the University of Texas to join the SEC effective July 1st, 2025. This comes just a day after Texas A&M placed their own vote.
All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Same sign.
Opposed.
Board of Regents approved Texas and Oklahoma to move from the Big 12 to the SEC in a 3-1 vote.
The motion passes. Thank you.
The two schools announced their desire to leave the league earlier this week. Since the two teams are expected to leave the Big 12 now, there are only 8 teams left in the league. It gives SEC an opportunity for more revenue and gives ESPN more power. The Big 12 shot back just the other day, submitting a cease and desist letter.
The Big 12 should not go out without a fighting chance.
Texas and Oklahoma are expected to begin competition in the SEC in all sports for the 2025-2026 academic year. I'm Rachel Espaillat, KRHD News.
ESPN has responded to a cease and desist letter written by Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby. ESPN says the accusations in the letter are entirely without merit. The commissioner accuses the network of incentivizing at least one other conference to raid the Big 12's other schools in order to speed up the OU and UT split. Bowlesby told the AP that he had absolute certainty ESPN was acting inappropriately behind the scenes. Well, you saw it here live on 25 News. No surprise. The Detroit Pistons drafting Oklahoma State guard Cade Cunningham first tonight. Houston Rockets had the second pick. They selected G League star Jalen Green. Baylor's Davion Mitchell went 9th overall to the Sacramento Kings. Governor Abbott issuing a new executive order, and he's doubling down on a previous order regarding masks. It says in part, quote, the new executive order emphasizes that the path forward relies on personal responsibility rather than government mandates. Texans have the individual right and responsibility to decide for themselves and their children whether they will wear masks. He goes on to say that vaccines are always voluntary. The governor is now facing backlash after he ordered state troopers to start pulling over vehicles suspected of carrying undocumented migrants. The gov says it's all part of the effort to slow the spread of COVID. Critics say that executive order is racial profiling. Others say it's hypocritical because the governor hasn't allowed counties to mandate COVID policies. The order comes as officials of both Laredo and Hidalgo counties have complained about Border Patrol releasing migrants with COVID. U.S. AG Merrick Garland has issued a letter to Governor Abbott to rescind that order. He says the order jeopardizes the health of those in shelter since federal law requires migrants be processed and appear before a court or report to ICE. Garland adds the order also breaks the law since a state can't enforce an order that goes against anything federal. Just a short time ago, Governor Abbott now responding in part, saying it would be of some solace if the federal government were conducting appropriate COVID-19 testing and other mitigation strategies. In short, the Biden administration is jeopardizing the health and safety of Texans on a daily basis by refusing to follow the law. We're finally getting a better idea of what's in the bipartisan infrastructure bill making its way through Congress. The Senate voting to begin debate on that bill. It includes $73 billion to upgrade the power grid, $50 billion to increase defenses against climate change and cyber attacks, $65 billion to improve internet access, and $55 billion to upgrade water infrastructure. According to the White House, the bill will create an average of 2 million jobs per year for 5 years. Meanwhile, the House voting to approve a roughly $2 billion Capitol Hill security spending bill in response to the deadly January attack. The Senate already voting unanimously to pass that measure. The bill is an effort to provide more funding for Capitol Police, the National Guard, and other law enforcement partners to cover costs during that incident. It will also help pay for security upgrades at the Capitol complex. It was a busy day for state Democratic lawmakers still out in Washington, D.C. Texas House Democrats met virtually with the Clintons and voting rights activist Stacey Abrams. Also today, House Democrats and then Texas U.S. Republican reps were in the Civil Rights and Civil Liberties Subcommittee hearing. Democrats have stayed in Washington to call national attention to the voting rights debate. 3 Texas Democrats did take some questions in the hearing. 4 Texas congressional Republicans were there. Republican state rep from East Texas made a virtual appearance to, quote, set the record straight.
U.S. pole vaulter and reigning world champion Sam Kendricks is out of the Olympics after testing positive for COVID. Story starts the newsfeed. The U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee says that he is now in isolation at a hotel. Track and field competition starts tomorrow. Now this comes as Tokyo reports record-breaking COVID cases for the 3rd straight day. The city reported nearly 3,900 new cases today alone. Now, the FDA is letting the troubled COVID vaccine factory where Johnson & Johnson's vaccine was being made resume production. The agency shut down the Baltimore factory in April because of contamination issues. That forced the company to import millions of doses to the U.S. from its factory in the Netherlands instead and to miss supply commitments. Now, with the new school year right around the corner and some kids going back to in-person for the first time, there's concern that it could bring about a resurgence of nicotine addiction.
We're really glad that kids are going to be in person again, but we don't know whether this will cause a resurgence in e-cigarette use because of peer pressure and being around other kids.
Prior to the pandemic, more than 3.5 million kids were using e-cigarettes. Now that's 1 in 5 high school and 1 in 20 middle school students. Now, when kids left school because of COVID, anti-tobacco groups admit that they're not really sure what happened to usage, but with pandemic-induced mental health concerns and a return to peer pressure on the horizon, they're worried.
I think it's important to look for signs of some of those stressors because we don't want, youth to resort to coping strategies such as e-cigarettes. They're very enticing.
E-cigarette education is ongoing in the school systems, but having an open line of communication between the school and parents is important. Also knowing what to look for.
This is a Juul cigarette, an e-cigarette, and if you see one of these, this is the cartridge, and this has as much nicotine as 20 cigarettes, a whole entire pack of cigarettes. So if you see one of these laying around, or something like this, which is a disposable cigarette, this is what your kids are smoking.
Now, the FDA has to decide by early September if it will ban flavored e-cigarettes and menthol cigarettes. Now, even the government acknowledges that these products appeal to young, first-time nicotine users and disproportionately kill people of color. Now, still ahead in our lineup, the TSA has reopened self-defense training for airline workers. But not as many people are signing up as expected. The changes one group wants to see to make sure workers are protected.
A Texas family is looking for answers tonight after a husband dies on the first night of a vacation in Mexico. After the break, we find out why they say what they're being told just doesn't add up. Questions continue tonight for the family of an Arlington firefighter who died during a vacation in Cancun. The family of Elijah Snow is demanding answers after his body was reportedly found at an entirely different hotel. His stepfather says the night he disappeared, he and his wife had drinks at their hotel bar. She eventually went back to the room and went to bed. When she woke up and realized he still wasn't there, she reported him missing to police.
Jamie noticed when she was getting into the police department, she saw a photocopy of Elijah's driver's license in one of the police officers' hands. That is where they told her that he'd been found. And what they told her was it was homicidal without suspects. It's just so out of character for him to try and get into a room. The only way he would do that is if he was in fear for his life and he knew that was his last resort to try to get through there.
Now, police say in Mexico he was found stuck in a bathroom window, adding that there were no signs of violence at that scene. Snow's family is demanding the release of any surveillance footage of the evening leading up to his death and asking anyone with any information to come forward. And here's Matt Hines.
And we are looking at some humid conditions across the area today, and we did see a little smattering of scattered showers and a few isolated thunderstorms as well, but currently mostly clear to partly cloudy. Temperatures just below 90, but it still feels like the mid to upper 90s when you factor it in Feels like temperature of 98 degrees, winds out of the east at 5 miles per hour. It is a hot night here across the Brazos Valley. 24-hour rain totals. Well, the heaviest rain, it appears, fell across Leon County into eastern parts of Robertson County earlier this evening, where some places picked up over an inch of rain. We did have a few isolated showers and storms in Brazos County and then down into parts of southern Grimes as well. But overall, looks like things are starting to quiet down. We did have that little complex of thunderstorms go from Centerville just to the east of Franklin, but that has now dissipated with the loss of daytime heating. There are a couple of isolated thunderstorms east of I-45, but those are dying out as well. So we are pretty much done for tonight after those showers and thunderstorms puffed up earlier today. Looks like things will be quieting down tonight going into the morning hours. But as we head into Friday afternoon, a few more isolated to widely scattered thunderstorms will be possible here across the area. About a 20 to 30% chance you'll get wet. Then we get into Saturday. This is where things probably start to quiet down quite a bit, as I'm not really seeing much in the way of thunderstorm activity approaching the area. So we are probably going to stay on the drier side for the first part of the weekend. So tonight, temperatures into the 70s for us, between 75 and 77. Then as we move into tomorrow, it's going to be another sultry day, highs in the mid-90s, but it'll feel like it's around 105 when you factor in that humidity. So a hot day here across the Brazos Valley, even though temperatures are at or slightly below normal. And as we progress into Saturday and Sunday, 97 degrees for high temperatures, 20% chance of an isolated storm by Sunday. That goes up a bit more Monday and Tuesday as a weak front gets closer, and that should keep us in the 90s all of next week.
Let's check the news feed. LinkedIn is allowing its employees to decide on their own if they want to work from home permanently. The company created a hybrid work plan that allows workers to decide how often they want to come into the office, if at all. LinkedIn also says it does not have a specific return date. Google and Facebook will require employees to be vaccinated when they return to the office. Google hasn't said how it will enforce the new policy. Facebook says it will develop a plan for people who cannot be vaccinated for certain reasons. Starting tomorrow, face masks will be required at Disney World for anyone 2 years or older while indoors, regardless of vaccination status. According to the CDC, the entire state of Florida is considered a hotspot.
You get on a plane full of people and some of them aren't very happy and you just never know what's going to happen.
The Association of Flight Attendants wants to make it easier for airline workers to get training to protect themselves against the increasing number of unruly passengers. It says airlines should pay their employees to take these classes, and the federal government should require flight crews attend each year.
We can have that muscle memory and be able to respond when someone is immediately attacking us.
The TSA reopened self-defense training late last month, but the agency says so far only a few hundred people have enrolled in the course. Now, we got an inside look at the first training course since they started up again, and they teach how to hit, elbow, even gouge aggressive passengers.
There's no backup at 30,000 feet. So that plane is in the air, that has a crew that has to deal with the issues, and it's incumbent on us to make sure they're fully equipped.
The most recent numbers from the FAA show there have been more than 3,600 reports of unruly passengers so far this year. More than 2,600 are reports of people refusing to wear a mask. Now, that mask requirement is currently in place until September 13th. The FAA has initiated more than 600 investigations this year into unruly behavior, which is the most in a year in decades. Cyber sickness is becoming more common as more people use VR headsets, and now researchers are starting to learn more about it, including what causes it. Cyber sickness is similar to motion sickness. People usually feel nausea, disorientation, visual fatigue, and experts say about half of users who are using VR headsets are experiencing it.
These have to deal with how the human eyes focus, the divergence accommodation conflict, or the mismatch between where the user eyes are focusing in real life versus where they are inside of a headset.
Up until now, researchers didn't have much information about cyber sickness, but now they've started using EEG technology. It detects electrical activity in the brain through electrodes attached to the head. Now, before EEG, the only way researchers could gather information about cyber sickness was through diaries that patients wrote in.
If you reduce the field of view, people tend to perceive less cyber sickness than if you have a wide field of view. However, the wider the field of view, the more immersive you feel, the more sense of presence you feel in a virtual environment.
Experts say this research is important as more people start using VR technology. Now, inflation will continue to hit Americans at the grocery store. It's a story that tops the newsfeed. Nestle, the world's largest food and drink company, says it's raising prices again this year by about 2%. Now, that's after it already raised prices almost 1.5%, and that impacts all sorts of products from ice cream to cereal. For now, Starbucks says it is able to avoid raising prices on coffee. Prices have steadily gone up because of recent weather-related crop supply shortages. And Starbucks said it was able to lock in cheaper prices on a large supply prior to those issues. New competition on the insulin market could help drive down prices overall. The FDA just approved Semglee as the first generic version of insulin without insurance. Semglee pens costs less than half the price of the comparable brand name versions.
The more people that know about this, the better, because it's helping a lot of people.
People suffering from PTSD are finding relief with a single shot in the neck. Doctors are working to make the treatment accessible to every American after it started gaining traction in the military. Amanda Brandeis takes a closer look into how it works.
Hey everybody, Chris here. Made it to the top of Mount Charleston today.
When Chris Jackamick enlisted in the Air Force, his why for joining was a work in progress.
The recruiter gave me a nice good pitch, and there I was, stayed at home during the summer, and shipped off in September of 1999.
The start of a 20-year career.
There's the moment that you enlist or you get commissioned into the military, and then there's the moment that you actually join the military. Like it becomes weaved into the fabric of your soul.
But 2 decades of service caused wear and tear on his body and mind.
Military members will compartmentalize it because of the stigma of military members don't cry. Let's get the mission done. And I was one of them.
While he served in Afghanistan, much of his trauma was closer to home.
In 2017, my brother, a Marine himself, would die by suicide. And that really kind of wore the fabric out of it. This is the ascent for Adam. He would have loved climbing with me today here on his on the day that we lost him. But this is for him. It was go, 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 and it really wasn't a time to step back and test some of the mental anguish that I was going through, the trauma.
Within 6 months, he'd also lose 2 comrades to suicide.
I was really emotionless, and especially, towards my children sometimes.
Immense trauma can send our fight or flight response into constant overdrive, disrupting sleep, causing overwhelming panic, anger, chronic anxiety, nightmares, or flashbacks.
There's not a one-size-fits-all solution. You have to find what works for you.
While Jackamick self-medicated with alcohol, he sought help in the military.
One that really was a game changer for me was called the Stellic Ganglion block.
Also known as SGB treatment, Stellic Center, one of the nation's largest providers, shared this video. Doctors inject local anesthesia near a nerve in the neck, resetting the fight-or-flight response.
The procedure itself helps to take away those symptoms and make a person able to function normally.
Dr. John House says it's been used for nearly 100 years to treat pain. Now a promising treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder, studies show 80% of patients find relief after 1 session.
This is not a cure-all. It does help quite a bit with a lot of people, and it has made it so that many people have been able to stop taking their medicines.
He's part of the Stellic Center's network of doctors. With locations across the country, more than 50% of people are within driving distance to a treatment center.
It's something that really affects my community. For frontline healthcare workers and first responders, I found something that can help.
In real time, I actually felt like every muscle in my body just relaxed simultaneously.
Jackamick is in alcohol recovery and no longer takes medication for post-traumatic stress.
My mindset has changed. I live more in an empathetic area of gratitude.
And through the trauma, he found a why, creating an organization to support those who've lost loved ones to suicide.
If this unlocks something for somebody else and allows somebody to heal, then these words are absolutely worth it.
I'm Amanda Brandeis reporting.
Amanda, thank you. And insurance usually covers the injection for patients when it's treating pain, but doesn't usually cover the same procedure for when it's for PTSD. Now, out of pocket, the treatment costs between $1,000 to $3,000. Most people need one treatment. Stellic centers aren't the only ones offering this. Family physicians can help patients get connected with a medical professional who does this treatment. There are growing concerns about the drought and water supply in the West. This week, water levels at Lake Powell, the second largest reservoir in the country, hit a record low. Great Salt Lake also hit new historic lows in recent weeks, as well as Lake Mead, which is the nation's largest reservoir. Now, that has one town near Salt Lake City taking some pretty extreme measures. Oakley, Utah currently has a new moratorium on all new homes that would connect to the town's water supply. It's one of the first cities in the country to do this. Now, the city says it doesn't anticipate having additional water supply until next year, but this plan has its critics.
It's extremely common for people to say, you know, this is going to send a bad message that we don't have access to sufficient water supplies. It'll affect our economy.
Catherine Jacobs directs the University of Arizona's Climate Adaptation Research Center. Years ago, she helped build the program in the state that requires people in certain zones prove they have a 100-year water supply to build new homes.
Each state has really different water laws and very different physical access to water supplies. And so there is really no one-size-fits-all solution, but it is not a bad idea at all to be required to use renewable water supplies for new development.
She says Arizona's program has proven to be effective in incentivizing the use of renewable water supplies, but it's not as dramatic as the change in Oakley, Utah. Other places like California are trying less drastic measures, with the governor asking everyone to voluntarily cut their water use by 15%.
Some 13 million Americans across this country live in flood zones, be it by the ocean, a river, or just a small stream. I'm Chris Conti, and coming up tomorrow, we'll show you some big changes coming to FEMA's flood insurance program that could mean a drop in rates for homeowners.
Checking the news feed, LinkedIn is allowing its employees to decide on their own if they want to work permanently from home. Now, the company created a hybrid work plan that allows workers to decide how often they want to come into the office, if at all. LinkedIn says it doesn't have a specific return date. Google and Facebook will require employees to be vaccinated when they return to the office. Google hasn't said how it'll enforce the policy. Facebook says it's putting a plan together for people who can't be vaccinated for certain reasons. Starting tomorrow, face masks will be required at Disney World for anyone 2 years or older while indoors, regardless of vaccination status. According to the CDC, the entire state of Florida is considered a hotspot.
Some 13 million Americans across this country live in flood zones, be it by the ocean, a river, or just a small stream. I'm Chris Conti, and coming up tomorrow, we'll show you some big changes coming to FEMA's flood insurance program that could mean a drop in rates for homeowners.
All right, Chris, thank you. And still to come today, advocates say the airline industry isn't doing enough to accommodate people with disabilities.
They have to physically pick you up and put you into their airline chair. And it's just, Phil just doesn't want to go through that. You know, it's kind of humiliating.
The changes she and other families want to see on new planes.
Kimmel's up next on this Thursday. Good Morning Texas on the air tomorrow, Friday morning at 5 a.m. Thanks for being